Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Sporting Perspective. This is the NCAA Football 2025, I guess, in a way, regular season wrap up show. We have the bracket out now, we have all the bowl games, we have the Heisman ceremony happening on Saturday. We're now in the postseason in a way, and we're going to just jump right into what everyone is talking about, and that is this 12 team bracket. James, I'll just pass it to you. What was your first reaction to it being these 12 teams and where they were placed?
Yeah, I think a lot of people were thinking Notre Dame would get in, and they didn't. The committee chose Miami, which I don't think is a wrong pick. But here's two things that I took from this college football bracket. One, BYU dropped in the rankings after getting blown out. Alabama didn't. They also got blown out. Both teams were in the finals. Why didn't Alabama get hurt for their loss, but BYU did? That's my first takeaway. I don't think, I'm not trying to say BYU should be in, but it's just funny to me that Alabama loses, gets blown out by Georgia. They stay at 9. BYU gets blown out, and they drop to, I want to say, 12. They were 11 in week 15. The final ranking, I'm pulling it up right now, they're at 12.
Yeah.
My second point is if you're going to put Miami in, why didn't you have them in earlier? I mean, Miami didn't play, Notre Dame didn't play. Miami beat Notre Dame head to head earlier in the season, but the last like 3 weeks we've seen Notre Dame in and Miami not, and then all of a sudden conference championships go by, and we're gonna put Miami in.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably my biggest hoopla too of like, you know, I get they have ESPN has this show to build anticipation from like week 11 onward of seeing who's in and everything like that. But let's say that show never existed and we had no idea where everyone was, kind of like how the NCAA tournament does it. Like, it's not like we get a weekly update of, oh, here it is. We get people predicting, but we don't have like a legitimate talking to like the
Right.
committee, being like, oh, here's what we're thinking. Had those shows never happened, I don't think we would have had a lot of that hoopla. I think we would have had a lot of conversations about those two teams and been like, well, Miami beat them. And then had this come out and Miami was ahead of Notre Dame, in the end, I think 99% of the country would have shrugged their shoulders and said, well, you played each other and you lost.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have been much of a story. The biggest problem is the fact that for nearly a month, the committee said that head-to-head matchup didn't really matter to them, and they thought Notre Dame was a better team. And then out of nowhere, the last night they flipped, and it was kind of like this preview show kind of messed it all up, in my opinion. The Alabama one, I don't have as much of a gripe with. I kind of felt like, as much as I wanted to see Alabama fall out, I had a hard time believing that they were going to drop them completely out, based off what they did with SMU last year. Um,
It's also Alabama. They're gonna get the East
it's
Coast
also out.
bias, but they lost to
It's
Florida
also
State, who was 5-7. It's like that's a bad
you go
loss. I
back.
know it's early, but oh my god, a 3-loss team in the bracket I think is absurd.
Yeah, and that's where like a lot of this stuff is gonna have to get corrected in these years to come, because I know we've talked about it off stream. Um, it's a multi-billion-dollar company here being run by volunteers, and it's like this is a mess. And it's like we've nitpicked this thing a lot on here and off here, just talking and stuff like that. And it's like all these schedules are so unbalanced too. Like, Indiana played great against Ohio State. Don't get me wrong, and I'm not going to take anything away from what I'm about to say about Indiana, but Indiana, outside of Ohio State, they beat Oregon at Oregon. You take out those two wins, their schedule was very weak. Texas A&M, they get in as the seventh, very weak schedule. I don't think Texas was really in this thing, but like They played a hard schedule, and they went 9-3. It would have been interesting to see if Indiana played that same schedule. What would have happened? Um, it's there's some teams that got in there. Oregon did not play a tough schedule. It would be interesting to see if some of these things were a little bit more even. You know, what would happen? And I mean, in the end, the ACC was dreadful. Miami saved them by getting the at large, or ACC wouldn't have gotten in at all. But like the fact that a 8-5 Duke won the conference tells you how bad that division was.
Yeah. I'm not too worried about. I mean, yes, obviously, strength of schedule is something that I think means more at the end of the season because then you can kind of start to tell what teams are. Um, but, like, I don't know. You can't fault Indiana for going undefeated, and that's the schedule they had even before the season started because we don't know how some of these. Like, Penn State, we had no idea they were going to be this bad. Like, that was something I think. I mean, that hurt a lot of teams in the Big Ten because they were just so bad that it's like, oh, you beat Penn State? Like, oh, okay. Like, good win, I guess. Like, um, that I don't mind as much. I think it's more of like, if you win, put them in. Alabama lost 3 times. I think I'm just over I understand preseason rankings. It's to build hype, So like Ohio State, Texas. People were saying was going to be 1 versus 2. I think it ended up being 1 versus 3.
Something like that, yeah.
So it's like, I get it. It builds the anticipation. People are 1 versus 3 is playing like week 1 of the season. We got to tune in. I get it from that perspective, but then there's another part of me that's like, we should abolish rankings till after non-conference or even after, like, heck, don't even start doing rankings till like the 5th or 6th week because you have teams like, let's take an Oregon or a Texas A&M, for example, who, in Alabama even. So Alabama was pre-ranked. Let's see here. I'll look it up real fast. We can see what they were.
I think they were like 7.
So
or
preseason,
like
Alabama was 8.
yeah.
If we put them as a non-ranked, if everyone's just not ranked, because we don't know how teams are going to be, you have a non-ranked Alabama versus a non-ranked Florida State. Alabama loses. Like, that's a bad loss. At the time, people were like, "Oh, Florida State's back," and I mean, I'll admit I was one of those people. But then as the season goes further, you're like, "Oh, maybe Florida State's really not that good. Like, we should probably penalize Alabama more for that loss. I know it's early, but it's still a loss." And Alabama's 8. So week 2 comes out. They penalize Alabama to 21. Alabama probably just shouldn't have been ranked. Yeah. And because of them being ranked so high, and then they lost and they just go to 21, yes, I get it. They went on like a nice win streak, won like 8 in a row. But then that vaults them back up in these rankings each week to be in a position to where they're a 3-loss team and they make it in. I don't like that.
Yeah, I mean it's a tough one. I mean, it kind of goes to my follow-up question a little bit. Oh shoot, I just completely blanked out. I really just blanked out what I was going to say, but I'll ask one of my other questions, I guess. Alabama played a tough schedule and all that stuff. There's been a lot of talk now about the fact that, okay, so there's automatic bids to these, group of 5 schools. You have, Tulane now in and James Madison. And both of those teams, Tulane is a 17-point underdog against Ole Miss. And James Madison is a 21-point underdog against Oregon. There's been a lot of now hype of the fact of, like, should these teams get in? Because I think both of us can make a pretty good claim that BYU, Texas, Vanderbilt, there's probably a few others I'm just blanking on right now, are better than these teams and may have more competitive games than these two. Do you think they should continue giving the power or the group of 5 teams a spot when Tulane lost 2 games James Madison, I think, lost only one, but still not a very good conference. They dominated a bad conference. I mean, they played I think it was a 8-4 Troy team to get in. Nothing like spectacular. Do you think there's going to be a change with that going forward? Because I know they went with like the NCAA basketball version of this, but football and basketball are very different.
So I'm going to contradict myself after the first thing I say. I think it should be the 12 best teams. However, if you go with the 12 best teams, James Madison and Tulane wouldn't be in there. What do those schools have to do to have a chance? Because if we're never going to include group of five teams, or basically just any non ACC, SEC, Big 12, Big 10 team, then like what's the point for James Madison and Tulane? Like what are they playing for each year if they're not allowed? Like if they're an FBS team and they just happen to be in a smaller conference, like, and I know they didn't go undefeated. I don't think we didn't have any group of five teams go undefeated, but Boise State last year, they got crushed by Penn State, but they totally deserved it. Maybe not a bye, but like they're an FBS team. They're recruiting. I mean, they're literally everything they do is the same as in Oregon and Alabama and Indiana and Ohio State. They want to have a chance to win. I mean, they should have every right to, have a chance at a national championship. Now, yeah, their strength of schedule is not as good. Yeah, they're in a smaller conference. But penalizing them to just like, well, they're never going to be a top 12 team ever, or, oh, they went undefeated. Their strength of schedule sucks, but, they just beat up on a lot of crap teams. They're not going to, like James Madison, they're not going to beat an Oregon. Well, it's like, heck, if I'm a recruit going to James, like, why would I ever go to a school like that when it's like, I'd only go there basically if that's the only place I can go. If I don't have an opportunity at a national championship, it's like, crap, what's the point? So to contradict myself, I think it should be the 12 best teams, but I also see a reason why having a Tulane and a James Madison means something, because you never know. I mean, we have seen, the Boise States take down the Oklahomas, in the past. It's rare. It doesn't happen that often. Appalachian State. Granted, I don't even know if they're FBS. They might be. Are they FCS or are they FBS?
Appalachian State, they're in the top division.
Are they? Okay. Yeah. So you see it every once in a while. So I don't know. It's hard for me to penalize those type of teams too much, because if one is deserving, I think they should go. If there's a year where we don't really have any good group of five teams, like maybe this year, then maybe they shouldn't be in there.
Yeah, this was also just a tough year, because just following up with that, we've been spoiled a lot in the last 10 years where we've had one or two teams that have big names next to them, like LSU, Alabama. They're undefeated. They have a ton of NFL talent. They're living up to their name. They look like the best teams. This year was kind of an outlier in the aspect of playing the name game really doesn't get you far. Alabama, as you said, has 3 losses. Your Texas had 3 losses. Your Tennessees really kind of weren't really in it. USC kind of fell out, 3 losses. Miami loses 2. Notre Dame loses 2. These big name schools that, you don't have to do a lot of work. You just say they're going to be good. And they just weren't that. Your best teams were Indiana, not a football powerhouse. Okay, Ohio State's still there, don't get me wrong. But like Texas Tech, one of the most underrated teams probably in the country at 12-1, and all 12 victories come by 20 plus points. If they were wearing a different jersey and it said LSU or Alabama, I swear to God, we'd probably be hearing the conversation as, is this 12-1 team the best 12-1 team of all time? But because they're Texas Tech and not a football powerhouse, we're not hearing that story as much. So I play them a little bit on the media here, but on top of it, I also want to make the claim as well where, going back to my original question, you look at James Madison's schedule, you look at Tulane's schedule, it's nothing really home to walk to like be like, wow, this is a crazy schedule. But like, let's go back to Notre Dame. Notre Dame did not play anyone the last 10 weeks of the season. Like, it was awful. And you can make a good claim that Tulane's schedule was potentially harder than Notre Dame's week past week 3.
Yeah, I also think it's so dumb that their contract starting next year is that if they're a top 12 team, they get an automatic bid. I mean, I get they want to keep all the money for themselves, so they make the playoffs, they get $4 million.
Yeah,
Everyone else who makes the playoff, it's a percentage split amongst like the conference.
yeah,
So I get it. Notre Dame wants to keep all their money. Great, good for you. But like, man, make it easier on everyone and join a conference because
yeah.
then things would just be a little bit easier. Yeah. As for Texas Tech, all hands off to them. They paid for this. They
Yeah,
spent a lot of money. I'd be curious what their ROI is at the end of this. See how far they go and what
yeah.
their ROI is because they put a lot of money to get here, and it would have been a huge failure if they just didn't do well in the Big 12 and didn't even make it to the college football playoff.
Yeah. Well, we're going to make predictions next week on these first week games, but just kind of looking at the bracket, is there a team that you like where they got put, maybe making a run? Is there any kind of upset type situation you're brewing at? I know we're going to talk about games more next week, but just kind of first glance of it, is there a team where you're like, oh, they've got a great run to the championship? Or
I mean, Indiana winning and getting that 1 seed, depending who they play, Alabama or Oklahoma, I would like to think Indiana would be favored. And then let's
Mhm.
just say Texas Tech beats the winner of James Madison, Oregon. We'll say Oregon. Regardless of it's Oregon or Texas Tech, I would think Indiana's going to be favored against them too. And if Texas Tech is kind of overrated ish, based on the Big 12's not that good, who have they beaten? Oh, they beat like a Utah team. They beat BYU twice. They lost to ASU. And then you have Oregon, who's uber talented, but I don't know, something that's just not quite clicking yet. If they can click it, who knows? Maybe Oregon could make a run, but I would think
Yeah,
Indiana's in a pretty good spot. And with what I saw out of Mendoza, after everyone's like, oh no, he's out for the game after that first
yeah,
hit.
yeah,
Uh, I mean, he's a warrior. I wouldn't want any other quarterback right now on my team than him in the country. And the last thing I'll say, Indiana's defense is absolutely legit to what they did to Ohio State.
yeah. Um, a couple of things I kind of took away are the amount of head coaches that are moving and playing a team that's going to be in their new conference. So, like Tulane's coach going to play Ole Miss, he's going to the SEC. If they pull off the upset, he's got to go play Georgia. It's a real welcome to the SEC for him. Here's two great teams back to back.
Yeah.
Have fun with that. James Madison's got the same thing. Their head coach is heading to Cal, or no, going to UCLA. They're playing Oregon. That game kind of scares me because Oregon's biggest struggle was against Indiana, and they're running the same type of things, still at St. Madison there. So that could be kind of scary for Oregon. That 21-point spread might be a little bit delusion there. So that's a little bit concerning. And then my other thing I kind of walked away from, which is kind of opposite of what you just said, is I look at everyone in the first round, and I think Oregon's good. James Madison's not much of a threat. Miami, Texas A&M, I think they're probably going to get knocked out in the second round. Not much of a threat there. Ole Miss without a coach, and then Tulane. Oklahoma, Alabama at that 8-9 is that same spot that Ohio State came out of last year. I'll tell you right now, if Bama wins that first game on the road, if Bama's clicking, we know Bama has the talent to beat anyone. It's not a fun opponent for Indiana.
No. I think the only team that beats Indiana is Alabama. If Oklahoma wins and beats Alabama again, I don't
Yeah,
think they really have a
I don't
shot.
think.
I don't think they have a shot at Indiana just because their offense isn't good at all.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think Indiana beats Oklahoma, but if Alabama somehow finds a way to win that game in Norman, that's not a 9 seed you want to play.
yeah. Well, if Alabama wins and then beats Indiana, there's gonna be a lot to talk about because
Yeah,
that's to a lot of people, Alabama shouldn't be in here, and then all of a sudden they're in the semifinals, a game away from the championship by beating
yeah.
Indiana. So yeah, I guess we'll see. I mean, obviously, I thought it was kind of funny. Signetti in the post game didn't even really celebrate the win of the Big Ten championship. He just immediately was like, he said what he needed to say. Oh, it's great. I've been here 2 years, Big Ten championship to Indiana, but now I got 3 weeks to get these kids, ready to roll. So I like that guy. I don't know if we've ever seen a turnaround like that. I mean, to go into the losingest program in the history of college football, and in your second year win a Big Ten championship and have them number one in the country, like give that guy a lifetime contract, Indiana. I know he got re-signed, but my God.
I mean, it's amazing what they've done, and now their next game, which will be in the Rose Bowl, amazingly, is I know the turnaround happens so fast and everything like that. And you'd think with the one seed, you'd be like sitting with a team of like, oh, these guys have been there before. Signetti's been there before. Nobody's been there before. That's the one thing that's also kind of scary about it.
That's their biggest red flag.
Yeah, it's like, are they going to go into the Rose Bowl at a neutral site against an Alabama or an Oklahoma? I mean, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out on January 1st. But we have a whole week to talk about all that and the different matchups that are happening next week. Overall, it's a hard job. I think some of the blame goes to the fact of preview shows kind of hurt this thing, but the 12 teams under the regulations they had to hit, I think I'm fine with it. Someone was going to have to get left out, and by the letter of the law of Miami getting in above Notre Dame, for me, it makes more sense than Notre Dame getting over Miami purely because they played each other. So.
They should have they should have dropped Alabama, threw in Notre Dame for Alabama, but then I'm trying to think how they make this work.
I would have loved to see them replay each
Yeah,
other, but that wouldn't happen.
if you can't figure it out and you're at a point where you're like, Alabama's got 3 losses. Yeah, they beat Georgia, but they lost FSU. That's a bad loss. They lost Oklahoma, who is in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Let's drop Alabama and put Miami and Notre Dame to play each other. So let's say they kept Miami at 10, throw Notre Dame at 7, let them play each other, and maybe just move Texas A&M to 8, and then move Oklahoma to 9.
Yeah,
that would have been kind of fun. But I mean, that's the whole point of these type of things is there's always going to be someone left out. Then people talk about expansion. Okay, you expand it, but then someone else is going to get left out. At the end of the day, it seems like they always, even if the first round it doesn't quite make sense, once you get to the semifinals and the championship, typically the 2 best teams are there.
Yeah. So let's talk about the 50 other teams that didn't get invited to the playoff and now into the bowl season. And, we got some interesting news, I guess, right after the playoffs where we've had about 10 teams now opt out of bowl games, Notre Dame being the top one, saying, we're done, we're not going anywhere, which may set up a precedent going forward, which will be interesting. And now we have all these other games. So first, I guess we'll talk about the opt-outs and then the games themselves. What was your reaction to the amount of opt-outs this year?
Yeah, I think it's lame on the schools to do that. I mean, I get it. These kids are paid now. You don't want to possibly injure a kid. You don't want it to be I guess I'll call it postseason. A postseason game where other teams can recruit the kid or, oh, that kid popped off and had a game. Let's get that kid to our school. I just think it's kind of lame. I mean, I'm not against change, but if they were to just eliminate all the bowl games at some point and we only get the playoffs, it's like, well, so we have the NFL now, just in college form. But, I mean, I'm happy that the Big 12 teams in Iowa State and K-State got fined. I don't know what's going to happen. I haven't seen anything that's happened to Notre Dame. I mean, I don't know who would. I guess the NCAA would have to fine Notre Dame because they're not in a conference.
Yeah.
But I just think it's lame. I mean, I get it, like the swag bags and the stuff. When it was the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl, all the kids got a PlayStation. Well, these kids are making enough money they already have their own PlayStation. But I don't know, it just takes away from it's a senior's last game, or if a senior opts out and doesn't want to play in the game, maybe then that freshman backup quarterback or freshman any position gets to play. I always think it's just kind of fun. I'm not going to say I'm interested and I watch all the bowl games. If I'm really bored, maybe I'll toss one on while I'm working just on the side and pay attention. But other than U of A being in the Holiday Bowl and then maybe tuning into the Pop Tart Bowl just to see the conclusion,
Yep, yep, yep.
I'm not too interested, I guess. But that's me compared to all the other schools. Every bowl game, obviously, there's a fan base that does care about that, and they get to go to a fun, well, hopefully a fun city. Some of the bowl
Yeah,
games are in fun cities. Some of them are in weird locations, but
yeah.
yeah, I don't know. That's my thought.
I mean, my big thing is so we've gotten to a spot where there's just too many bowl games, and especially over the last 15 years, you see some of these games getting played in terrible cities and at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday, and they do the stadium shots, and they look like there's 2,000 people there, and it's like nobody cares, which is a problem. So like I, it's one of those things where I understand why some of these teams are opting out, especially ones that are going through coaching changes and things like that. I get it. Notre Dame's situation is an extreme, but like you mentioned the Pop Tart Bowl. So many of these bowl games at this point just feel like such a money grab for like the city or the people putting it on or whatever like that, and do nothing to make it exciting. And a lot of the stuff is just rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. Got to give a lot of credit to the Pop Tart Bowl because you mentioned it. It's very entertaining what happens with their social media and the chaos that's going on around the game that makes it like, well, this is different. Like, who's gonna get put in the toaster and who's gonna eat the Pop Tart? Like,
Yeah,
it's kind of fun.
and it's a
Like,
good
it's like
game. BYU Georgia
it's
Tech's not a bad game.
it, they put good teams in it, and it's like they have this other social media stuff going on around it where it's like, okay, there's entertainment rather than just there's more going on. There's just so many of these games where I'll just pick on one, like the Frisco Bowl, like UNLV Ohio, 2 days before Christmas. Who
Yeah.
cares? I
Maybe,
mean, and
maybe
they're
they
not going to
maybe
be.
they just need to up it. Like maybe instead of 6 wins being bowl eligible, because like some of these games, it's like 6-6 Kennesaw State versus Jack. I'm just making things up, but it's like two 6-6 teams playing. Like, did you really have that good of a season if you went 500? Maybe make it
Yeah, I
like
mean, make
seven
it to
and
where there's
five, eight and
the
four.
other
I don't know.
the other thing is there just needs to be some sort of incentive that goes into the upcoming season or something like that, where you know just something to make it more interesting or something to carry over to be like, oh, there's a real reason to win this game because there's a lot of teams treat this kind of as spring training as well, and it feels like it at times.
Maybe they should
Where
make it like that Las Vegas basketball tournament. Not these bowl games are tournaments, but like each bowl game
yeah,
based on your record, like if you went to a better bowl game, you get more incentives in like NIL money or something. So like the Pop Tart Bowl, you have BYU, Georgia Tech, both ranked teams. I would consider that a good bowl compared to the 6-6 teams playing in the
yeah,
whatever crap bowl. Give some incentive to like okay, the winning team gets $2 million in NIL or something, and then in those smaller
I
bowl
mean,
games, just not as much. I don't know if there's a
I
way to
mean this.
structure it like that. That's just an
I mean
idea.
this could be a crazy incentive. I would just kind of throw out this myself of like this would never happen, but like the team that you play in the bowl game, and you have to figure out the bottom teams and stuff like that, and figure it all out. That's the team that you open with next year, and the winner is hosting the game.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because then the teams would actually want to win because then they're playing at home. At least the ADs would definitely want to win.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways I mean, the amount of the amount of ideas I've seen from people of how to
Yeah.
change it, how to do this, what to do this, how to do this. Yeah. You could talk about this for days.
Days. So I know you mentioned it. You're interested in the Arizona game. I think you mentioned the Pop Tart Bowl. Nothing really else really jumps off the page though, right? For you?
I don't think so. Who there was one game someone was talking about. It's one of those games where like on paper if you just looked at it, it looks good, but it's really not that good. Who's Clemson playing?
Penn State,
Yeah.
two
So it's
disappointing
like
teams.
preseason.
Yeah,
That would have been a great game, but
yeah,
not a game I really care about. I'd have to look at the schedule. I mean, right off the bat, like I said, Arizona is obviously going to intrigue me because I'm one of those fans who I want to watch my team. They're playing
yep,
SMU. Many people thought that that could have been Notre Dame. It could have been Arizona Notre Dame,
yeah. That
and
would
people
make
are
sense.
speculating that with Notre Dame declining, they ended up putting SMU in there, which then probably led to a domino effect of how to put other teams elsewhere. Obviously, then you had K State and Iowa State. Were there any other teams that opted out, or is it just those
It
three?
was it was 10
Holy crap!
in the end. It was 10. I don't know the full list, but yeah, 10 ended up rejecting. Um, just a lot. So a lot of those 10 were kind of in that 6-6 range, which that's kind of become more and more common, and that number keeps on growing. Um, but yeah, it was 10. A lot.
Okay, so I'm seeing Notre Dame, Kansas State, Iowa State were all bowl eligible but opted out, and then this doesn't make sense to me. So several 5-7 teams: Florida State, Auburn, UCF, Baylor, Rutgers, Temple, and Kansas also
because they,
declined
because they all got the option and they said no.
because of the other schools. So like Kansas State and Iowa State opted out. That opens up two
That
spots for
opened
the
up
Big
that opened
12.
up the door. Yeah, it opened up the door, and then they said
Gotcha.
all those said no.
Why the hell wouldn't a Baylor, a UCF, a Kansas? You're 5-7. Like, go get some money. Help your team get a little better.
I mean, it's also one of those things where, I mean, this looks more on the program than anything else, and like the coaching staff and the guys that you recruited. But we've heard of a lot of horror stories where guys go to these bowl games and things go out of control, and guys are getting arrested. And for the most part, you never hear about these guys' names ever again. But I guess the most famous one that people forget is Travis Kelsey. Remember, decided to go out partying in New Orleans the night before his bowl game, and he got benched.
I don't remember that, but that's funny.
Yeah, yeah, they were in a bowl game, and he was a freshman at the time, and Jason was the starting center, and Travis kind of says it was like one of his like turning points of his career because it was like the first time he realized, oh God, actually I think he got thrown off the team. He got thrown off the team. That's what it
I had
was.
to like
And
remake the
Jason
team.
and Jason went to the head coach after graduating and be like, "Hey, he's young, he's stupid. It was a stupid mistake. Like, just give him another chance." And like he had to like re-enroll back into school, and I think he lost his scholarship.
Wow.
Yeah, they talked about it on the main or on their.
Podcast.
I think it was on the Manning cast when they were on. Like it was like apparently like his turning point because he thought Travis thought his football career was over as a freshman after, and it was yeah, it's because he went he went out on New Year's the day before the game and got plastered.
That's funny. That's
Yeah,
a great like what if type of story. Like, imagine if he just
yeah,
yeah, he just who knows what he'd be doing now.
yeah. Who
He wouldn't be
knows?
marrying
Yeah,
Taylor Swift next summer. He'd probably be working at some
yeah.
like
Who
hedge fund
knows?
company. Well, no, he's not smart enough to do a hedge fund company. He'd be working somewhere.
Yeah, but it's just and there's a lot of those stories where I mean that's a big name, but every year there's some morons that go to these bowl games and they do stupid stuff and they get booted from the team and it's a whole scandal. But yeah. All right, well, we'll put the bowl games to rest. We'll kind of be keeping an eye on them throughout the Christmas schedule. At least the nice thing is, while we're at Christmas and these holidays, there's something to watch and something to gamble on for all these degenerate gamblers out there. Coaching carousel's kind of cooled down, but the big name of the week, Matt Campbell going to Penn State. That's really been our big news story for the coaching carousel. Your reaction to that? My only thing is, I thought it came surprisingly late. I thought he was like one of the top names. I thought he would have gone right away, but
Yeah, I
um,
mean, for what Penn State had, for all the coaches we saw moving, and for us to mention Penn State last week and how they were not in a good spot, I thought Matt Campbell was. I would say that's a good hire.
yeah,
Seems like a high character dude. Built Iowa State up pretty well. You know, they weren't. I feel like the last couple of years Iowa State's been pretty good. Obviously, Penn State's a better job. He's got a lot of work to do though because he's got to hit that transfer portal and recruiting game hard because he's starting off kind of at the bottom. But
yeah,
I thought it was a good hire.
yeah. Considering where they were a week ago, I think they did a really good job with that one. But nothing too much else on the coaching carousel at this point. But things can change at any moment. And lastly, last thing we're going to talk about this week, happening this Saturday, is the Heisman ceremony. They have mentioned the four names. I know Sands there, Mendoza's there, Love is there. I think Diego Pavia is the fourth.
Yep.
I forgot he was the fourth. So it's those four. I think we're both in agreement that we think Mendoza's going to win. But just to make the conversation a little different, who would you like to win?
Well, I would like Mendoza to win. If not Mendoza, I think I'd go Pavia, just
Yeah,
because he had a good year. Vanderbilt basically had the greatest season they've ever had in their lifetime, and Pavia is kind of a cool story. I mean, from Albuquerque, played at New Mexico State, transfers to Vanderbilt, which obviously is a huge upgrade, but literally the doormat of the SEC, and then takes them almost to a playoff berth. So I'd probably go Pavia.
I would love to see Pavia win it. I think he probably comes in fourth, unfortunately, but hopefully Theo Vaughn is there with Pavia's mom. That would be funny.
Well, you
uh,
don't think Love will come in fourth because he was hurt and like missed a game or two, and
I think Love probably finishes third. I think he goes Mendoza, Sand, Love, and then Pavia. I think it's going to go in that order. So,
I mean,
but statistic.
yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go
Well,
for
I
it.
was just gonna say it would be pretty crazy if Mendoza doesn't win it.
Yeah, I think his odds at this point are like -1,000. It was crazy to see how his movement was happening last Saturday, though. You could have gotten his odds at like +200 at one point, and then it just shifted in a second. It was crazy.
So do they
Uh,
include that championship weekend for the Heisman?
yeah, voting happens. Well, you're supposed to vote like the day after because that's technically when the season ends. If it was up to me, I would say let's cast all the ballots after the playoffs, even at this point, because you know your national champion is going to play three more games. Let's just say I'm just throwing it out there. Say Mendoza wins and then just completely poops himself at the Rose Bowl, and Sand has this crazy run, then it's like,
Yeah, but Pavia and Love kind of get screwed because they don't have any other games
then
to
correct, and they
really.
don't have
But
anything
so I
to do.
understand why they do it now.
Yeah, so, but I mean, but it was also like one of those things too, where it's like, this is a good example. Remember Ohio State last year, where you had Smith was, he was good during the regular season, but no one knew his name as a freshman, and then at the end of the college football playoff, we're all like, this guy should be the number one drafted guy in football. He would have won all the freshman awards.
Yeah.
So, but all right. Well, anything you want to add before we jump off here?
I don't think so. Kind of sucks that we don't really. I guess we have Army Navy Saturday in the Heisman ceremony, but no college football. Well, I guess bowl games start, but no playoff games till the following week.
Yeah, I mean, the one of the silliest things I was going to mention this, forgot to mention this. One of the stupidest things I've ever seen, and thank God. I mean, what would have happened here? Just I want to throw this out there. There is the Heisman ceremony happening at 7 o'clock Eastern. At 8 o'clock Eastern, the first bowl game happens. What would have happened had Washington or Boise State had a Heisman guy. What if you like? I'm not saying it's a very long shot, but let's say like Washington's quarterback had a crazy year. Does he go to the Heisman ceremony or does he play in the game?
In today's day and age, you'd probably be at the Heisman ceremony.
Yeah, which is wild. Scheduling is a mess on this one. It's just a mess. But yeah, bowl games start on Saturday, and then starting Tuesday, we got a bowl game. We got football for a lot of days
Yeah.
in a row.
Oh, last
That's
thing I will
always
say, Sam Levitt put himself in the transfer portal, so he's probably the biggest quarterback name out there. It'll be interesting to see where he goes.
should be interesting. We'll see if he's a Lane Kiffin guy. All right. Well, until tomorrow, we'll be talking week 15 of the NFL slate. First week of fantasy football playoffs for all you guys that are still alive. I don't think I have anything else. So until tomorrow, have a wonderful night.